we already know, you never quite know what to expect when you head out to enjoy a day out on the water, kind of like this crew found out just a little over a week ago when they went out to enjoy a day of fishing and wound up catching something a little different, as we can see in the images here. Now apparently this is not all that uncommon to run into, especially down there in Florida. While I've been offshore many times and never seen anything like this, I guess apparently it's not uncommon for the Coast Guard to run across these off the coast of Florida, rescue the occupants off of it, then mark the vessel to let people know that the people have been rescued, and then just set it on its way to be discovered by others, as we see here. But this is just one of the wild and crazy things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to our neighbors to the north and take us over to British Columbia in Canada, where a man is facing multiple charges after allegedly attempting to drive his vehicle off a British Columbia ferry, as well as possibly assaulting passengers and crew who were on board the ferry ship. According to local reports, there was an unruly man who was running around the car deck on board the ferry ship, fighting with both passengers and crew of the vessel. Crew quickly alerted the local authorities of the situation, who decided to meet the ferry vessel at the terminal. Here the images show the unruly passenger still arguing with crew as they arrive at the terminal, and now he turns his attention to the officers who are awaiting him as well. They start to lower the deck that they would use to unload the cars, and quickly the man runs back toward his car, thinking, I'm guessing, that he's gonna get away somehow, but I mean, they've got it blocked where he can't drive off, and the officers wind up having to forcefully remove him from the vehicle. According to reports, the incident occurred on board the Queen Cumberland ferry, which at the time was en route to Schwartz Bay. Witnesses on board the vessel did give the officers statements after the incident. They claimed the driver of the Tesla seemed to give the staff on board the ferry a lot of trouble and really didn't want to follow the directions, and drove his vehicle directly to the center in front of the boat as if he wanted to be off of the vessel first. But the interviewed passengers claim that's not where the weirdness stopped. Actually, the crew was very kind and let him sit in the front of the vessel, but passengers said midway through the sailing, he actually got out of the vehicle and started frantically washing his car using bottled water and paper towels. One of the crew who was interviewed said he was just being very weird and acting very agitated, but after he was done washing the car, apparently the man opened the gate at the front of the ferry and started to drive forward like he was going to drive the vehicle overboard. According to a statement from another witness on board the ferry, that statement claimed, "We were in the middle of the voyage off Pender Island. It was dark and I'm thinking, what in the heck is this guy doing? You don't mess with the gate." He was yelling at the ferry staff who came over to talk to him. He would then drive the car forward like he was driving it off the ferry and then back it up and drive it forward again. Every time he did that, everyone on the car deck thought, is this the time that he's gonna go over the edge? They also claimed that the BC ferry staff tried to talk to the man and calm him down, and that the ferry even stopped at one point in time during the trip in an attempt to try and get him out of the car. Both crew and passengers even tried to block the tires of the vehicle to try and end the incident, claiming that the man would just drive over the things they were using to block and would start to head overboard and hit the brakes just before actually going over the edge of the ship. As seen in the images though, officers were eventually able to subdue the man and get him into cuffs. Unfortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Sicily, and some of you may remember these images that we're about to show here. The images are of the 184-foot super yacht Beijian. Now, many of you probably remember this one, as the Beijian was anchored near the port of Portocello back on August 19th of 2024 when the vessel was caught in a strong storm and wound up sinking in the port. Well, 10 months later, crews are finally working on raising the vessel off of the ocean floor to try and investigate the hull to see if they can determine what exactly went wrong, causing this tragic accident. An investigation has been underway for over 10 months and still no official claim has been given as to what officially caused the vessel to wind up capsizing during the storm. Investigators are hoping by pulling the vessel up to see if possibly any hatches were left open during the storm, or if possibly even the keel may have been retracted just before the storm hit. They're hoping to be able to investigate the vessel and find out what actually caused it. There is some new information though, as a preliminary safety report released last month claimed that the Beijian actually may have been susceptible to high winds when running on an engine, but neither the owner nor the crew were aware of this at the time of the incident. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Trinidad and Tobago, where this was the scene several weeks back, when the Guyanese-flagged cargo vessel Heen wound up getting hit by a storm and having its cargo shift in the hull. According to local reports, the vessel was carrying a cargo of bricks that wound up listing to the port side of the vessel, causing the vessel to get on lean as we see in the images here. The crew quickly took emergency actions and feared that the vessel was going to capsize and sink, so they wound up porting toward the Manoa Islands and deciding to go ahead, put the throttle into forward gear, and grounding the vessel in an effort to save the ship from capsizing. Here in the images we can see, you can actually see and hear local fishermen yelling at the captain, asking them to stop and put the power off before they get to the island, likely in fear of the vessel having some sort of breach and causing some sort of environmental impact affecting their fishing on the island. Fortunately, in this situation, the hull seems to be intact after the incident and no injuries were reported. Crews are currently working on salvage operations to try and get the vessel back off the island. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Florida to an incident that occurred just a few days ago when a family of 5 and their dog were out enjoying a day of sailing when all of a sudden things went terribly wrong. But fortunately for this family, a man and his 8-year-old son wound up seeing their vessel with smoke coming off the back, thinking initially that the family was having a barbecue, but only to discover that the boat was actually on fire. The man and his 8-year-old son quickly jumped into action to head over to the vessel to try and rescue anybody who's on board. The pair, upon arriving to the vessel, found 5 people on board, including a dog. All 5 happened to be wearing life jackets upon the moment that they pulled up. The pair actually wound up recalling the incident to local media.
So I threw out a stern line, and the family with their life vests were able to jump in the water and grab the line and allow me to pull them away from the boat.
Once the man and his son got the family pulled far enough away from the boat where they were comfortable, they wound up pulling the family onto their vessel. A short time after that, the St. John County first responders arrived at the scene, first checked on the family to make sure that everybody was okay, and then began battling the blaze on board the sailboat, eventually extinguishing it. Fortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported thanks to the first responders who arrived on the scene and the quick action from the Good Samaritan who jumped in to help the family as well. But thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram at Broncos Guru and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.